To this, the Border Management Authority is keeping a close watch on travellers returning through the Beitbridge Border Post in Musina, the country's busiest land port of entry. Commissioner Mike Masiapato is leading a team assessing the processing of travellers, and this is to ensure smooth and safe crossings. For more on this now, we take you to SABC News reporter Katlego Nyoni, who's reporting from the Beitbridge Border Post this hour for us. So, Katlego, take us through what is happening where you are now.
Good morning, Mxolisi, and of course to our viewers. We are certainly at the Beitbridge Border Post, where the Border Management Authority continues to monitor the movement of people across all ports of entry throughout the country. While at the Beitbridge Border Post, the situation is congested, and already the BMA informs us that they are working on a strategy to decongest the border. I'm going to step out of shot so my colleague Llewellyn Customs can show our viewers just how packed it is. A few days ago when we were at the border, it was fairly quiet. However, those numbers have picked up. The Border Management Authority reports roughly between 22,000 as well as 25,000 of people that have been counted so far. And also they mentioned that since the start of the return phase across all ports of entry, there's been about 546 interceptions as well as several arrests. I'm going to speak to one of the people that are using the border today. Thank you so much for your time on the SABC News channel. How do you rate your experience since you arrived at the border post?
Today the situation is bad. I think they are busy inside. They are working, but since yesterday here, but they are working.
And how long have you been here yourself?
Since yesterday night.
What do they say seems to be a challenge, if any?
I don't know the challenge, but inside they are working, but we don't know the challenge. Yes.
All right, thank you very much for your time. We just want to find out what exactly the challenge is by bringing in the Commissioner of the Border Management Authority, Dr. Masiapato. Thank you so much once more for your time. We see the situation has drastically changed. Of course, figures are now starting to increase. What is the latest status update?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Katlego. Yeah, indeed, we expected that today is going to be one of the big days, and on that particular basis, we are really anticipating a lot of people today, primarily because, tomorrow is Monday, and that is the reality. So yesterday, for instance, we did about 22,400 people that were entering into South Africa from, obviously, Zimbabwe, but also the rest of the continent. We had a lot of buses, mainly some of them coming from Malawi, for some of the people who went to a church that side for the purposes of entering into the new year. So on that basis today, we are anticipating that we can probably get beyond 25,000 towards 30,000, and that is basically the numbers that we are looking at. As you can see now, we have actually set up a number of processing areas, including what we call temporary processing areas in the park homes, to make sure that all of the people are accordingly processed.
And in terms of all the ports of entry in the country, which one is the busiest? How do they fare in looking at the overall influx of people?
Yeah, if we can just talk in terms of the past 24 hours, we can confirm that the leading port as we speak now is OR Tambo, that is sitting at around 28,000 plus that they've just processed during the course of yesterday. And of course, it is followed by Beitbridge that has done, as I said, 22,400. And then the third one is Limpopo that was just sitting at around 21,000. The rest of the other ports are doing well. For instance, if you were to look at Maseru Bridge as well as Fixbeck, a lot of work that is happening that side, but they are just averaging around 16,000. And then from there we have Oshuk at Eswatini as well as Kofontaine. So those are our top ports that are processing. And of course, in terms of the seaports, I can indicate that a lot of people are now coming back into the country from the cruise liners, especially at Durban Harbour, Cape Town Harbour, as well as PE Harbour, and we are processing them back into the country accordingly.
And the woman that we spoke to just now, who is amongst the many people here that are utilizing the Beitbridge Border Post, indicates that she's been here from yesterday, of course, speaking out of frustration, commending that you are actually working. However, the process appears to be dragging. What seems to be a challenge, if any, from your side?
You see, it's not necessarily an issue of a challenge. I think what is happening when people are now entering the country, the process becomes more intensive, and that is the difference. For instance, when people are leaving the country, we basically do immigration work, and it is only that. We just do immigration work. But when they come into the country, we then firstly do do port health work to make sure that all the people that arrive at the port are screened for any kind of infectious or communicable diseases. That is the first thing. The second thing, after port health work, we have to make sure that they are processed in terms of immigration. After that, the third thing that they have to do, we have to actually scan all their bags to check what they are carrying into the country and make sure that they don't bring any undesirable things, agriculturally or even environmentally. So that is the level of intensive work that we do. Therefore, on that basis, we can say that the process is a bit more intensive. Comparatively, some of the people will say in other ports where we came from, they just stamped the passports and we walked in. That is basically the processes in those particular countries. But here, in terms of entry, it becomes a bit more comprehensive than exit, and that is the difference. So it's not necessarily that we are doing anything wrong. We are doing everything according to what the law is expecting of us.
And you mentioned an interesting point that you're making there, that you don't want to let people into the country with undesirable items. Let's speak about that. If there's been any arrests, particularly pertaining to agricultural products, issues around biosecurity. We understand also there's been about 546 interceptions across all the ports of entry. Talk to us about those figures.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Over 500 had been intercepted across all of the ports, and we still continue to see that the highest number of interceptions are happening at Lesotho, ports of entry, but again followed by, I will say, Mozambique this time, and of course Beitbridge. So Beitbridge, we have observed low levels of interception. That is why we only account for 15 out of the 500 plus. And we understand the reason. Some of the people have realized that there is intensive deployment this side, and that is why they are going to the Western Corridor, particularly around Bridge port of entry. So that is the essence. In terms of the interceptions that we do, in terms of agricultural products in particular, we don't necessarily do any arrest, but what we do instead, we confiscate those things and we have to then burn them through incinerator. For instance, when people...
You may just come in, I'm sorry about that. What are these items? If you could just describe them for our viewers, what exactly are we talking about here?
Number one, you are not allowed to bring, for example, mangoes from outside South Africa into South Africa. You are not allowed to bring some kind of watermelon into the country. You are not allowed to bring anything, I mean mangoes, apples, whatever the case is. Remember, other countries don't have an issue with that. So if they exit with a mango from South Africa, let's say to Zimbabwe, they will accept it. On our side, we don't, and those are the agricultural protocols. Anything that enters our jurisdiction, even in terms of agriculture or what you'll call animal and their products, plants and their products, there is a process that actually has to be followed. You must follow the normal importation processes. You do not therefore just bring anything into the country. Similarly, when it comes to medicaments, there are instances where people will bring some kind of medications that are very much undesirable, for example. Things like your skin lightening bleaches that are actually unacceptable. We have to confiscate those things. We have to get them destroyed. They will not be allowed into the country. And that is basically the kind of things that we search for. When we find, we confiscate and we destroy.
Commissioner Masiapato, thank you very much. We're still going to speak to you at the top of the hour at 12 o'clock just to find out where we are in terms of your operations. That's the commissioner there of the Border Management Authority, mentioning quite an interesting scenarios pertaining especially to agricultural goods, that they are not allowed to be brought in via the border. Products such as your mangoes, your watermelon, and they're mentioning that there have been several interceptions, about 546 that across all ports of entry in the country, that the OR Tambo airport remains the busiest with about 28,000 people processed so far, and the Beitbridge Border Post coming in second, and some ports of entry like the Maseru port of entry less busy. However, numbers continue to steadily increase. We'll be stationed at this particular border post to monitor the BMA operations.
Right, Katlego Nyoni is our reporter working that story for us this hour. Thanks so much for that update.